And one thing we noticed is that a lot of realtors, they were making a lot of content. These people don't have the time to make content because they got to close business. We have the expertise of editing and producing. Why don't we just reach out to realtors and see if they want to create talking head content? And the first question I had is, okay, what are your packages? So boom, right there. This means that, okay, they actually want this. And then in the meeting, you're like, I'm okay with the reels and everything. I can do that myself. I want a podcast. Podcast isn't what we were offering.
I knew it wasn't. You looked at him and he looked at you and he's like, he threw a number at me. And I already knew that was a high number. And I was like,
nah. The bug got to me. I love the autonomy. I love how much control I have. And I love how I can expand this into something more. One thing that I don't like, DC, is like living with regret. That was like the most pivotal moment in my life where I had to make a decision. What kind of man do I want to be? Legacy is greater than currency.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 83 of the DC Talks podcast with yours truly, David Schnelly. Well, we got a special guest today, and you might recognize his beautiful face.
It's me.
It's my co-host, Owen.
Me. You know what I'm talking about? The conscious baby. What's it going to play?
I always like the fob when they do
this. Yeah.
So, Mr. Owen, I always say now I'm on air. I'm going to screw up your last name. So,
Osinde.
Osinde. I don't want to say it when it's off air.
Yeah.
Or as my buddy Dennis came to say hi to you, and he's like, I got to say hi to Agent 00.
Oh, yes.
I'm like, don't call him that. Nobody calls him that.
DC, the brand is strong, man. The brand is strong. Yeah.
All right. So today's a little bit different, guys. We're flipping the script a little bit. And I wanted to interview Owen. And the reason why I wanted to interview Owen is a very young entrepreneur that is, in my opinion, killing it. And so since I've known you, like I've seen the business grow, a lot of people don't get to see what you do behind the scenes of what actually you're involved. So some people have asked me the question like, well, what does Owen do? Like, how did you get to know him? All this kind of things. And I've had this idea for a while. We had some other guests who were supposed to come, and they had good for you is like, they canceled. I'm like, this is awesome because now I can actually interview Owen and get a little bit of insight. So we can talk a little bit about you, the business, et cetera, just getting people to know you a little bit.
Exactly.
And how this all evolved. So first off, thank you, Owen, for coming.
Absolutely, DC. It's my pleasure to be in the DC headquarters again.
Does it feel a little awkward me asking you questions, or says
no? This is. I mean, it just feels like an extension of our chats that we have offline, and it just seems like another day. But now we actually have the mics to record it.
Yeah, it's true too. So a little bit of history, Owen. From Sarnia boy.
Sarnia man.
Yeah, Sarnia man. And you came from Kenya, or you're born in Kenya.
Yeah.
Lived in Sarnia for a number of years, and then you came to Toronto. What year?
Yeah. So my family moved to Canada back in 2003. I saw it as a good opportunity for my sisters and I to have like a better life, better education. We immigrated to North York at the time. So we lived up in Don Valley Parkway, 03 to 06. Then my dad got a job with Suncor Energy in Sarnia, Ontario. Moved there by himself. So it was a great town. Like, you know what? This is an amazing place to raise a family. We decided to build a house from 05, moved there around like 05 going to 06. And I've been there ever since, had a great childhood. Lots of sports, being by the water, being beside Port Huron, Michigan. And I moved to Toronto in 2012 when I came to Ryerson for university. And I've been here ever since, just doing my thing.
Do your parents miss you that you're not with them every day?
The older that I get, I think I start missing them more because I think my mom and dad, they're starting to feel like the loneliness without the kids, because my sister is not older. Like my sister is not turning 27. Right. My sister just turned 25. So like we're all becoming adults now and they're actually experiencing like, okay, we're actually entering this other stage of our lives, like where our kids actually have their own lives and, they can only come here like every other 2 months. So I think they miss it. When my mom comes, when we come for Canada Day, she's like, oh my God, you guys are coming. She makes our room. She prepares a lot of food. She has a lot of guests over. It's just a whole...
I should come over there. I'm going to go with you next time.
Come through.
I'd absolutely love to go to Sarnia.
We have plenty of room for you. So we throw a lot of like parties. We dance, like a lot of like, people get dressed up and it's just DC. You'd have a blast. My dad loves whiskey too. So you'll definitely fit right in.
I'm in. I don't have to bring my kids, do I?
No.
They would just be sitting in the corner on their phones.
Yes.
So a little bit about the company now. So the company's now is new Waverly.
Waverly. Yes.
And so it's a branch off. We'll talk a little bit about that.
Mhm.
So, if people don't know what Waverly is, how would you do it as a 30-second sales pitch? Like, what is Waverly?
So Waverly is a podcast agency. We predominantly work with working professionals, and now we're shifting towards working with coaches who actually want to start a podcast. So if you're a business owner, whether you're a dating coach, life coach, public speaking coach, any type of coach, and you're looking to grow your personal brand and elevate your business with content, we can help you start a podcast from scratch. We got our start early back in 2022. Like, you were one of our first clients. We got our start with realtors predominantly, but now we're really shifting to other categories, which we see the market is going. But in a nutshell, we help people start a podcast from scratch and help them manage it and produce it.
And kinds of things that people don't know. So the clips that you see from me on social media, that's all done from you guys. You guys all do that in-house. So one of the reasons why I hired you was that I love the fact that I gave you kind of what I was looking for. I said, I want to be as hands-off as I can. I just want to come and talk, and you guys take care of everything else. And that's basically what you do. And I love the fact that, is there different, is that what everybody else is looking for? Do you have different, I guess, packages and things like that for people, or is it, is it all different?
David, like, the way the business started was like by accident, to believe it or not. I was working back in 2022 for a company called Clearco. So I was working in strategic partnerships. And at the time, like, Alex and I had built this great brand with a podcast. So we're actually making great clips. We're producing a show.
Alex, by the way, was his former partner. We'll get into that. We'll talk about the history from you a little bit, but Alex. So just in case you're asking, it was his former partner. So sorry. So Alex and him got started.
So we had the podcast. We've been doing a great job with it. But if you were to tell me back then that this is what I'd be doing right now, I'd be lying and say that's not what I've been doing. The visions that we had at the time was just to grow the business with hustle of everything and go from there. But prior to that, I've had great ambitions to build something great, from back as soon as I can remember. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And the feeling I got from that was at the time when I was about 14, 13, it was about spring break, and my mom thought it would be a great idea for me to get a job at Timmy's or Tim Hortons. But I was like, okay, cool, I can do that. But then I saw an opportunity to shovel my neighbors' driveways just to make some quick bucks. And the feeling that I got from actually just pick up my shovel, go to my neighbor's house. I know they can do it, but it's tedious for them because they're up there in age. Get paid $25 right on the spot, right? So I looked at them. Okay, if I can do this, I can legit make the income I'd get working part-time at a Timmy's or Harvey's. And I did work at those places just because in the summertime, my mom actually wanted me to get a job. So the bug got to me. I was like, I love the autonomy. I love how in control I have, and I love how I can expand this into something more. So the ideas of wanting to become an entrepreneur started from a very early age. And over the years, I started several businesses. Some were duds, some were successes. But I would say this, each gave me a blueprint to what to do next. And that's what happened with Uplift Studios at the time, right? I got laid off. We're making these amazing pieces of content. One guy tells us, I think it'd be a great idea if you guys make this content for other people. This is before we got laid off. And I'm like, okay, what do you mean by doing that? Well, we'll just make clips for other people. I'm like, okay, who are we going to sell this to? Who are we going to service? So when I got that news that Clearco was cutting off 30% of its staff, and it all started because Shopify had went and allowed people to start businesses, and we started fulfilling. So what Clearco does is give advanced cash to e-commerce entrepreneurs, and a lot of them couldn't pay it back. So if they can't pay it back, our business is going boom and bust. So July 1st, DC, I wake up, it's Canada Day weekend.
2022.
So Caravana, everything. I got a good workout in that morning, thinking that, got a haircut planned out. The sun is shining. So I go in the gym in the morning. I come back and I see an email saying, unfortunately, so this is Michelle Romano's company, just to give some context. I got affected. So I was really bummed out. I was really crushed. But that was the most pivotal moment in my life where I had to make a decision of, okay, what can I do to really move forward? Because I had about 6 months of runway, if you include severance and everything. Okay, they're giving us a nice payout. So I can really take my time here, not rush into a decision. And from then on, like we started Uplift Studios, started making content. At that moment, um, I sat on my balcony and I was like, okay, oh, these are the dreams you have. You really want to build a business and you want to leave a legacy. Like, I really want to, DC, like the thing about how my ambition has changed over the years is it all started like, okay, I really want to become wealthy, right? And once you realize like that's possible, it will happen. It really started to become about something bigger than that. Okay, what kind of man do I want to be? I want to create something special, like make my family proud, because I want to make my parents proud, my family back home proud, because a lot of them don't have the opportunity to come to Canada, right? Because to start a business back home is extremely challenging. Mm-hmm. So if I'm here and I have all the resources and I don't do anything about it, it's kind of like a letdown, right? And it became more about like, legacy is greater than currency. So I was like, you know what? I'm very young.
I like that.
Yeah, right. Legacy is greater than currency. I'm young right now. I can take a lot of risks. So I sat on that balcony. I'm like, you know what? Let's explore this content creation idea. And one thing we noticed is that a lot of realtors, they were making a lot of content. So I'm like, okay, you know what? These people don't have the time to make content because they got a closed business. We have the expertise of editing and producing. Why don't we just reach out to realtors and see if they want to create talking head content and see? So I'm like, okay, you know what, Alex? Let me make a spreadsheet of like 100 realtors. I'm like, I love sales. I can cold call people. I can see if this is actually a valid idea. So I picked up the phone, just started dialing, right? I'm like, hey, this is Owen from Uplift Studios. This is what we offer. I saw on your page, this is what you do. Is this something that you want to really outsource to other people? First question I had is, okay, what are your packages? So boom, right there. Someone asked me, what are your packages? This means that, okay, they actually want this. Mm-hmm. So I booked a couple meetings, spoke to a couple of realtors, a couple of mortgage brokers. I pitched like, I think an offer for, I think it was $1,000 for 30 clips. And it's like, immediately, yeah, sure, let's do it. So I'm like, that was a quick sell. Like, are we underselling ourselves? Are we overselling? So over time from doing that a lot, I started formulating like a minimal viable product of what is actually going to be sold to these individuals. And we just iterated. And then when I called you, I was like, okay, like this is my thought process before I rang you up. I was like, man, this David Chinelli guy has a lot of content. I'm like, what kind of value can I offer him? But I was really about to like, he seems to be doing, because you put out a lot of content at the time, right?
Yeah, I still do.
You still do. So I'm like, me being the guy who I think I am, I'm like, you know what? Make the call, right? You don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
So I was like, hey, that was about like 5 a.m. going to 6. We pick up, I introduce myself. I'm like, hey, this is Owen Osinde from Uplift Studios. The reason I'm calling is because I'm seeing that you're making a lot of content. We help realtors create content for Instagram Reels and etc. Is this something that you're thinking about doing more of? And you're like, hey, like, you know what? Sure. So then we come to your office and then you're like, hey, I think you did some research on me and Alex at the time, and you saw that we have a podcast. Mm-hmm. And then in the meeting, you're like, I'm okay with the reels and everything. I can do that myself. I want a podcast. And honestly, DC at the time, podcast isn't what we were offering.
Mm-hmm. At the time. I knew it wasn't.
It wasn't what we're offering.
Because even what Alex offered me for the price point, I'm like, I knew he hadn't thought about it. You looked at him and he looked at you and he's like, he threw a number at me. And I was like, and I already knew that was a high number. And I was like, no. No. And I was like, and it's like, listen, I think I paid you guys at the beginning. It was good. I was like,
at the time,
at the time, I was like, listen, it's a sweet deal. I think, listen, I think it was mutually beneficial. Like and I knew like you hadn't done it, like you'd done some podcasts, but not for somebody else. And you had mentioned, I'm like, for you guys to run, I'm like, listen, I could be your guinea pig. And that was the idea. Right. And I said, I can help you. But I was like, but I wanted this and I liked you. And I was like, one thing is I understand is that people's like, when somebody cold calls you, don't always hang up the phone. First off, don't always hang up the phone.
I never hang up on.
No, not you. Not you. So for the people, I was like, but if you're an entrepreneur, somebody cold calls you, like, you don't know what they're going to offer and how what they may be offering you may not be what the end you actually work with each other, right? So get to know if you like the person, if you can work with each other. And that's what I wanted to see you in person. I said, well, come by. Let's see if it ever pitch me. I wanted to see who you were in person, right? Because I know salespeople. I know salespeople, and I like the tone of your voice. I liked the way that you carried the conversation. So that's what kind of sold me. It was like, okay, I think it was worth a shot. I think you can do some content, but I'm like, I want a podcast. I didn't tell you until you got here what I wanted.
But it's something that you wanted, though. A podcast.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it was a way, and I didn't know where the podcast was going to go. The way we started the podcast is much different than what it is right now. The beginning was all real estate stuff, and now it's a little bit of everything, right? Just things, I get shit about all the time. But I would say keep the person on the phone. And we talked with Mike Samra about this as well. It's a lot of like a ping pong back and forth, getting to know each other, especially if you're cold calling somebody, right? It's trying to get that banter back and forth, how you can help each other. Yeah. And that's the idea. And that's what you did. That's what you did. But it was funny you said about the entrepreneur. Like I grew up with a family of entrepreneurs, and I was always pushed to go to school. And the funny thing is about school is like, it is not set up for entrepreneurs. Yeah. It's actually not set up for boys in general. I think Jordan Peterson talks about this. He's like, you're killing little boys. He's like, they're full of energy. They should be running and playing, get rid of that energy and stuff. That's how they don't learn, by sitting in front of them, you like lecturing them. You need to do this. And like, it's wrong, right? It's just wrong. So nobody teaches you how to be an entrepreneur. But if you have the entrepreneur spirit, you will find a way. Exactly. You find a way to make it happen. You find a way to make it happen. And well, congratulations so far. You've done that. It took me a little longer to realize I had an entrepreneur. Even though I took entrepreneurship during my MBA, I didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. I'll be honest with you. Even when I was in corporate, I knew I didn't fit in, but I couldn't put my figure on it. Now this makes much more sense, right? But anyway, I want to get back to, so you had this partnership with Alex. I always had me and you always had the banter. It was always Alex, don't get me wrong. Like to this day, whatever, Alex is Alex. Like I have no ill will against the guy whatsoever. But you were always my go-to guy. And I had a little conversation we had after our first kind of podcast. I remember you came to me and you said, "Hey, do you think it's a good idea if you got somebody else to be on your podcast? Somebody who's more real estate?" I said, "No, I want you." Yeah. One of the reasons why I hired you was you. It's because of me. It was because of you. And that's good or bad for the business moving forward. I think you have, like, again, we were just talking about this off air. In order to be able to scale business, you almost have to step back, but hire people to almost take care of you, do something better than you before you can step back. And that's kind of the idea. But I like the fact that you weren't a realtor, that we could talk about other things. You have different cultures, but very similar. We didn't realize in our talking how similar we were in our thoughts. Very similar. Very similar. Yes. And the more and more people that I talk to, entrepreneurs, we all think alike. Yeah. Whether it's our political views, not always our religious views, but a lot of the deep-seated religious stuff. There's a little bit nuances here and there, which we don't always agree with, but there's a lot of, higher power, Jesus, God, all the stuff too that always has like a lot of entrepreneurs have some sort of higher power, which they believe in. It's family values, what they have there too. And I think that's what we resonate well with. Going back to Alex, was recently, I think in January, I think you guys officially were split. How did that go? Yeah. So for me, it reached a point where we were doing the podcast. Like, we had done over 180 episodes on Hustle of Everything. During the past year in 2023, I'd really decided to give this thing my full shot, like a full effort. One thing that I don't like, DC, is like living with regret, right? There's like, you could be half baked, but you're never really going to be able to see what can happen if you don't go all in. So I was like, you know what? It's funny. Like, I just interviewed Samra too. He said the same thing. It's always about regret. Always about regret. Anyway, sorry, go on. So I was like, man, let me give this my best shot. Like, one of the key things I have within me is like, I can control my effort. So if I can control my effort each and every single day, and if I do the daily activity, I'm sending out my emails, I'm sending out my calls, we're taking care of our clients the right way, there's no way we can fail. So fortunately, we had everything to make it happen. We had the team, editors. We had Isaac, who's behind the cameras right now. Love you, Isaac. Right? So I'm like, this is all on me. So over that whole year, I was kind of like
manning everything by myself for upper.
And a side note too, Alex got injured. He wasn't able to come
he wasn't
physically here.
exactly.
Since
6
May.
months.
Yeah,
Exactly.
6 months. It was
So so Alex at the time had taken a full-time job. He had gone through his breakup with his girlfriend, so he moved back home and he started a full-time job. So when I really looked at that dynamic, I was like, man, and of course on the other side with Hustle of Everything, things were not really progressing the same way that I had expected it to happen, right? We had been podcasting for such a long time, and I felt like the content was running its course. There was really like a plateau we had hit. The dynamic had gone stale with the type of content we were making. So as this whole year is going by, I'm like, okay, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing here. I'm building this podcast with Alex, Hustle of Everything. I loved it. I was actually the one who brought him into the podcast, and we ended up being co-hosts together. So as things were wrapping up and we're going into January, I was like, look, we've been doing this over and over. Nothing has really progressed. And sometimes, DC, in life, you got to sink the ship, right? You got to sink the ship, and you've really got to be able to embrace starting fresh, starting new, even if it means burning bridges, not really burning bridges, but really deciding, okay, I'm willing to start over again and by myself or do something different. You can sink the ship with your job. You can decide to quit your job, do something else. If it's like a relationship that you're like, you know what,
sink the relationship, gone.
Get your shit and move.
Get the thing and go. So I was like, I need a fresh start, and I think this would be beneficial for Alex and I, just because he really wanted to focus on the podcast, and I was like, you know what, and I really wanted to focus on building the agency. Yeah. So I made that decision to rebrand and to really start anew, start by myself, with me by myself, just being the sole decision maker, just because I felt over the year that partnership wasn't really like a partnership. Like, we were not really aligned the same way that you're supposed to be in sync with every single thing. Yeah. So I made that decision in January, and that's how
this is one thing I've said. So partnerships aren't always meant to be last forever, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes a partnership will run its course. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I would say is, like, you don't go into any relationship no matter what, whether it's business or, what do you call it, romantic
relationship,
giving yourself an exit strategy, right? Well, especially not romantic relationships. You should never get an exit strategy, except partnerships should have an exit strategy. And the reason why you always want to have that is that in case something happens like this, it doesn't always have to be, it could be an amicable break. It doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to be contentious with either side. But sometimes it just happens that it runs its course. It's no longer viable for you to be in a partnership. Therefore, at that point, it's like, okay, if you had something set up and written down beforehand, you will know how to split and what assets are divided evenly, etc. Was that what happened with you guys?
No, that's not what happened with us. I mean, I knew that what happened is, like, the business was incorporated under my name. And for the longest time, like, I hadn't really brought in Alex as like a documented shareholder. During the process, halfway through, we had gone the thing of getting him as like a documented partner, because I brought him in because I'm like, okay, let's see how this works.
Right.
And when it came time to actually, okay, let's make it happen, things kind of took a change. And I was like, I don't really know if I really want to put this on paper. I started seeing certain things, like where the synchronicity and the alignment on certain things were not really suitable for a long-term partnership. Our lawyer at the time decided to go away on vacation because he had a death in the family. So things kind of got stretched out for a long time. So by the time I came to the realization that I don't think this might be beneficial for the both of us. And ultimately too, you have to remember, as a partnership, you have to have like the same value system at the same time to really work out well together. I started noticing that, between that partnership, Alex saw things differently than I did. And, it caused sometimes unharmonious kind of feelings between conversations. Things could not really gel as I wanted them to gel. So I was like, hey, man, I think this is like the time to do this. And, at the time, Alex agreed. He's like, hey, listen, I totally agree. If I can go build a podcast, I'll go do it. And, this is a fresh start for everybody. So, not having that documentation kind of helped a little bit because it really removed the idea of like, okay, how do we break this apart? How do we do whatever? I was very gracious to say, you know what, I'll help you out in certain areas just because, morally, like we worked together for some time. I don't want to alleviate you with all this financial burden with me moving on with the business that's generating revenue. The podcast isn't really at a place where it's consistently generating revenue because there's no clients there. So I did the integral thing to really make him whole and everything and move on. And, but of course, along the way, you start seeing some things that might not be really, things come up after, which you would not have predicted. And of course, you're in between that too. Like, I think you've seen how this all played out, but
unfortunately,
yeah. So that's how the partnership, ended. And, but overall, like, I mean, now governing the business as the main founder and working to grow it and build employees, that definitely has its challenges. And being a leader, being a CEO, when you remove yourself from being an entrepreneur, you've already made the business.
Yeah.
Right? What do you do now to scale it? What do you do now to make sure you have systems and processes in place? How do you coach someone to be the best version of themselves when you can see their diamond in the rough? Right? So it's now my job to be like a good steward of this business and to make hard decisions. Like, okay, this is working. This isn't working. This is what we can do to turn it up. This is what we need to eliminate. And how do we do this continuously to really see this thing to financial maturity over the next like 6 months? So I don't have all the answers, but I'm figuring it out every single day.
Yeah. So currently, do you have like static employees, or it's mostly contract work you do most of the time?
It's mostly contract work. So for example, Isaac, he has like his own set business, but he predominantly works with a lot of our clients that we film in person. We have editors. We have some editors who are overseas. We have some locally at the same time too. Client managers, someone who we can hire like offshore who can actually manage the accounts. And the reason we do this is because when you're looking to build a business, you really want to have a healthy profit margin. And like employing Canadian employees, not to their detriment, but like it's a lot more expensive to hire someone here, especially as a young business, because if you're bootstrapping the entire thing, if you don't have someone bankrolling your business, you really need to be savvy in how you really maneuver this. So if you want to offer someone like you a healthy, like something you can pay and actually get benefit from, and I can get benefit from as a service, you really need to find ways to really lower the cost of producing that at a high level. So fortunately, we had that, and it's been working out really well. But you start realizing the more you scale and the more hours that you're accumulating from your employees actually fulfilling the service, editing, producing, it starts taking a toll over time, right?
Sure.
So yeah. So those are some of the things that I'm realizing.
And a couple of things. So we know now that for your own personal brand, I saw those people where you have your own, kind of clips and stuff you do. I think it's its own. What do you call it? A show, a podcast? It's not really a podcast. It's like 5-minute clips.
5-minute videos. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I find very interesting stuff too. But a lot of it because it's stuff we've talked about. So when I see a video, I'm like, I got into that too. I like that. So what kind of things do you talk about on those 5-minute clips? Like, where do people find? Mostly YouTube, or is it on? I've seen them on TikTok a lot too.
Yeah, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, any social media platform. But the platform is called The Underrated. And I've been very fascinated with a lot of things that have happened in history. Being a young entrepreneur, I've always wondered, okay, how did this person make it? And I've consumed so many stories of success and what success looks like. But as I get older, I'm starting to realize that there's so much more behind that story that we rarely ever talk about. So that could be in sports, it could be in business, music, or just in general pop culture. Back in 2020, when the pandemic happened, we were building the podcast, and newsletters started.
Fake pandemic.
Newsletters were becoming a thing. So I was like, I told Alex, I'm like, hey, let's start a newsletter, and let's see how this thing goes. I started writing these stories underlying the business strategies that have happened in certain moments that we know. So, for example, it was a weekly newsletter. I'd written over so many pieces of content, like a weekly newsletter.
Yeah.
So I've been sitting on this drive of stories that I've written. And I'm like, you know what? Like with me leaving the podcast, there's two things I want to do, right? So first and foremost, I have to grow my personal brand as a face of like a content creation company. How can I be selling you services and I'm not making any content? That's a little bit contradictory, isn't it? Right? So I'm like, if I prospect someone, if I reach out to someone and they come and research me, they need to see the level of output that we can do. Okay, what's he talking about? How does he present himself? Right? So I really take care of like everything that I put out. It has to be top notch. So number one was to create a personal brand that is actually going to be a driving force for the business. And internally, we're using it as a case study. How do we take this YouTube channel and try different things to see what works? So if I see that works, I can come back to you. I'm like, DC, you know what? In our YouTube channel, we did this, this, and this. I think if we implement it on yours, it can work. So it gives us a tool to work with internally to see how we can help other people. And I'm the one who's behind the camera. So, okay, 5-minute clips. Okay, see how that works. What kind of topics? How do you make SEO better? How do you make the tags better?
Well, that's part of the reason why we started doing the other topics was like, I think you and Alex talked to me before. And I remember you presented like a space of we were using me as a guinea pig in the beginning. We're like, well, we saw the direction going this way. And you're like, you guys were intimidated about it in the beginning, but asking me. And I'm like, yeah, let's just do this. Like, and it was, I think that's great. And now you have another avenue. You can use, your past clients now and yourself and figure out what works. And just the more clients you get, I guess you get more data, right? That really does help. But
exactly. So that's what happened. So a month in, we've made 5 videos so far. That's been received very well. But honestly, DC, with making the underrated, I truly feel as if I'm in my element, meaning that when
it's funny when you don't have to answer to somebody else.
Yeah, right. It's one thing to actually set up the thing, like make the video yourself. And I love the process, right? I love sitting there creating a script from scratch, practicing the script. How am I going to deliver it? How am I going to say this word? Okay, what's the thumbnail going to be? What's the title going to be? Why are we making this video? The mental exercise of going through that process is so rewarding more than anything. So I do want to make this platform like as big as possible. But the one thing that you have to remember, and I've realized this, is that the market rewards you when you put in good effort, right? So if you really take your time and make good content that people enjoy, people love and willing to share, there's no way you can lose. No way you can lose. So it's been a fun, exciting journey. It's starting to pick up some traction, and hopefully it could be like a vehicle for developing like another media arm of like, okay, we have Waverly, we have the underrated. And one thing I've wanted to mention is that the company is called Uplift Media Group, right? So we have Waverly, which is what we're doing here with the podcast. And now we're actually shifting more towards like a virtual side of things. Now we can work with coaches worldwide and helping them do like a virtual podcast and make it look elite by helping them choose a camera that they can actually put behind their laptop and actually create a podcast from wherever they are at. And then doing this underrated side of things where, yes, my face is out there, we're building a brand, but we can actually create something that will generate revenue the more the channel picks up, like month over month, year over year, and actually be like a source of fun facts for people, right? One of my aunties, when I went back for Canada today, she's like, hey, Owen, actually, I spoke about one of your videos, like the soccer one that you did, and I sounded really smart in front of everybody. I'm like, that's why I wanted to do it, right? It's because I want you to go at a dinner party and you can actually regurgitate a video that I made and, have some small talk. So it's not really straight business, but it's anything that could be fun and exciting for everybody to watch. And I like doing that.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Listen, since I've known you, I've seen you grow. And like I said before, and I highly, I stress this a lot, that if you are interested in, doing anything like we do here, like obviously, and anytime somebody comes to the office, I introduce you to them because I think you guys do such an amazing job. I would highly suggest you guys reach out to Owen as well directly if you want and see what he can do to help your business, because I really do believe in you. And I think you've helped me as well. As much as I always like to help people that help others. And I think you're an amazing person that way as well. Okay. So before we're allowed to wrap up, as Isaac's giving us the, words of advice for somebody, whether it's an entrepreneur or somebody in a partnership or something, any closing words you want to give?
Any closing words that I want to give for any entrepreneur? Number one, I'd say this: it's very hard. It's extremely challenging. And one thing that I realize is that you've really got to allow yourself to stumble and fail. And one of the things that I realized too is like when you're building a business or you're going to any endeavor that you really want to make it into something, sometimes at the moment you feel the most pain, you're like, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to figure it out? And you just stick it through. Just the grace of God gives you an opportunity, gives you a way. And this has happened to me over and over again. Amen. And trust me, there's moments when I've wanted to toss it in. There's moments I've wanted to give up and be like, what's the point? You owe this person money. Oh, you got to do this. This person fires you. Like, I've dealt with it in like a year and a half, but I'm still standing. So I'm still standing.
That song was running through my head too, brother.
So like the key thing to really to get ahead month by month is, first and foremost, you got to have faith. You really have to have faith, like in something. You've got to see the vision. You really got to think, live, breathe, and conduct yourself in all your affairs as if the person that you want to be, which is that thing that you want to create. Number two, you got to be persistent. Mm-hmm. You've got to do the daily activities. So if it's building a business, okay, what are the revenue generating activities? Okay, I know I got to make these cold calls. I got to make this emails. I know I got to make strategic hires. I know I got to have planning. If you do that every single day over a sustained period of time, you're going to realize you get certain insights that you would not have gotten if you're not doing those particular activities. Mm-hmm. This whole side with the coaches side of things was by accident, right? We were working with a lot of realtors. We're doing a lot of these things, but just doing activities, there's certain knowledge that you get from the higher power, which gives you a path and a direction to really make that vision become a reality. Mm-hmm. So if I can leave anything, have faith in your idea, in your endeavor, and just be persistent. I think God rewards persistence, and he gives you an answer, and he gives you like a lending hand when he sees you're working earnestly hard into what you're trying to do. And I've come to realize that anything is possible. Anything is possible. I'm telling you, like, I got a call the other day, like, from, I was like, Owen, like, our company's thinking about starting a podcast. I was like, where is this coming from? Like, DC, I was searching for answers. I was sitting there on my desk. I'm like, bro, like this meeting canceled. Like, and one after the other, something happened. So,
but again, guys, God rewards things though for those that work. We're not telling you to sit back and be lazy and expect it to fall in your lap. That's not how it works.
No,
that's not how it works.
That's not how it works. So
we do have to wrap up, buddy. Like,
no, for sure.
Isaac's going to kick your ass in a second here too. But like lots of words of encouragement. But I agree with you. Like we had a friend of ours too. Like she was struggling and stuff too, and just couldn't think of it. Just wasn't doing much. And then as soon as she started to looking for work, there was all these opportunities started popping up, and money started coming to her. And it was just like And my wife turned to me and she's like, "I can't believe it. It's because before, when she wasn't looking for it, it didn't come. But when he started to put the work in, God rewarded." All right, Owen, what's the best way for somebody to reach out towards?
Yes, you can find me at Owen Osinde. So that's Owen, Osinde. That's on all social media platforms. Owen at Waverly.fm if you want to email me about any of the services that we offer. My YouTube channel, The Underrated. So that's Underrated Biz on Instagram and at Underrated Business on YouTube to see some of the content that I've started to make and just showcasing my interest in the things that I love that I think you can find value in.
And as we say always, if you like this content, we always ask you like and share. Send us some comments. If there's any other topics you want us to talk about, we'd love to hear from you. So please do that. Until next time, my friend, peace out.
See you next week.